Hi, welcome back to Checking In at the Library. I'm Barry Trott, Adult Services Director at the Williamsburg Regional Library, and today we're going to talk about historical mysteries. One of the great trends in mystery writing lately has been writing mysteries set in past times. And the most fascinating thing about that is these aren't police procedurals, of course, because there were no police forces until the 19th century. So these are all featuring amateur detectives from a wide range of life experiences and a wide range of careers. So we're going to talk today about three millennia, 3,000 years of crime fiction. And we're going to start off with Linda Robinson and her series that begins with Murder in the Place of Anubis. This is set in the time of King Tut, the young pharaoh, and our detective here is Lord Marin, one of the members of Pharaoh's court, who's known as the eyes and the ears of Pharaoh. So you can sort of get a sense for what he's doing. He's tied into the court life, and he investigates things for Pharaoh. I think in addition to a great mystery story, one of the things that folks are going to really enjoy in this series is the Egyptian setting. It's a unique and very interesting setting. Robinson has done a great job with her history research, so she knows a lot about the food, the customs, the religious customs especially, and a great series for that. And if you like things with a little bit of political spice to them, I think you'll find a lot to enjoy here as well, because the setting in the court of the pharaoh has a lot of the political infighting between the different courtiers and trying each of them as they vie for power. And Lord Marin, of course, gets caught up in all of that. So a great start to the series, set about, this is in the 1330s BCE. So it's a long time ago. We're talking, this one's almost 3,000 years old in setting. But a wonderful series. Lord Marin is a great detective. We're going to jump forward in time quite a bit here, almost 1,000 years in one jump. We're going to move straight to Rome in the 70s AD with one of my favorite historical mystery series for its both for its general writing, for its sense of place, but also for its humor. Lindsay Davis, the Marcus Didius Falco series. Falco is her detective, is set in Rome in 70 AD, and these have been described as sort of taking Sam Spade and dropping him into the 1st century. Falco is a smart aleck detective. There's a lot of witty humor here, a lot of wordplay, clever. He like his contemporary private eye detective heroes of the 20th century, Falco finds himself in scrapes continuously. He's as quick with his fists as he is with his wit, and he's a private investigator. People come and ask him for help finding solutions to things, whether it's a lost parent, a lost child, a murder. It doesn't matter. So Falco is a great one, especially if you like your historical fiction or historical mysteries mixed with a bit of humor. He's got a lot of wit, a lot of wordplay, and these are clever. If you like Robert B. Parker, the Spencer novels, I think you'd find a lot to like in these, just with a setting in Rome in 70 AD instead of Boston in the 21st century. Another one with a really unique time and place, I think, that is worth checking out are Peter Tremaine's books featuring Sister Fidelma. These offer a fascinating look at life in Ireland in, let's check here, the 660s. So we're talking about 7th century Ireland. Fidelma is a fascinating character because she brings a couple of different things to the stories. She's a member of the Irish royal family. She's the sister of the King of Ireland, so that's one aspect of it. She's been trained as a judge in the courts of Irish law, though. Not unusual for a woman at that time, but not completely common. And also, she is a nun. She's a member of the religious order. So again, here you get a lot of different aspects of Irish history being pulled together. You get the coming together of the political piece. You also get an interesting look at religion in Ireland in the 7th century, because you get the conflict between the Church of Rome, the Catholic Church in Rome, and the Irish traditional Catholic Church. And they had different ideas about things. There's a little bit of romance in here even, which is you wouldn't expect in a book about a religious sister, but But Fidelma, being a member of the Irish Church, where priests and nuns did marry at times, does have a romance with a Saxon religious, and there's an aspect of that to it. But all in all, just great mystery stories too. These are probably, if you like excitement, if you like a little bit of a thriller, I think you'll find some of that in these stories. And if you like an Irish setting, these are definitely going to do it for you. Tremaine captures the setting of Ireland in a great way. So Sister Fidelma is a wonderful character. Certainly recommend those. We'll jump forward to England now. A lot of the historical mysteries are set in England, and the one I'll talk about next is one that really started the whole thing off in some ways with historical mysteries. But Edward Marston sets his series, one of his series, because I'm going to talk about two of them, sets his series in right after the English or the Norman conquest, right after 1066, about 15 years. At that time, the king decided he was going to take a census of the whole of England and create what came to be known as the Domesday Book. It listed everybody, where they lived, went into all the villages, listed everybody who lived there, what their occupations were. It really was a major census. And here our two heroes. This is a great one because it's sort of one of those buddy mysteries where you have two detectives working together. But our heroes work for the king. They're basically out doing his census work, and they go into these small villages and towns in England to take listings. But at the same time, they find themselves caught up in mysteries. Their role as outsiders in the town often allows them to see things that the people who are living there don't see. So they can bring this sort of outsider aspect to the solving of the crime. So great stories with an interesting setting and an interesting time in England, which was going through a lot of changes at that time, the 1060s. As I said, the next book I'm going to talk about is the next writer is really one of the ones who made the historical mystery genre incredibly popular, and that's Ellis Peters, the late Ellis Peters. She's sadly no longer with us. But her brother Cadfael series, which is set in the Abbey of Shrewsbury, or the Abbey of St. Peter and Paul in Shrewsbury, England, really was the kickoff for many readers of their love of historical mysteries. Brother Cadfael is a monk in Shrewsbury at the Abbey. He's not been a monk all his life, so he brings a variety of life experiences that get discussed in the course of the series. It's a long series, I think 16, 17, 18 books in the series total. But Brother Cadfael brings experience as a crusader. He fought in the Crusades over in Jerusalem. It's a fascinating man. He's the herbalist at the Abbey, so you can sort of get a sense we're getting into a little bit of the forensic side of crime solving here, at least from the medieval perspective, and that Cadfael knows his herbs, his poisons, and those tend to be sort of often the center of these stories, or they center around, the mystery centers around something dealing with that sort of aspect of crime. So from that perspective, they got an interesting piece. The religious aspect, again, Ellis Peters really knew and loved the monastery in Shrewsbury. She understands the day-to-day lives of the monks. She understands the interactions of these men who are set aside from the world, but at the same time are of it. Brother Cadfael, as often you find in these stories, has a great assistant who works with him, the Hugh Berengar, the sheriff of Shrewsbury, representing the King's Law. You have an interesting time period, particularly in these stories, because England, and again, these take place in the 1140s, so the middle of the 12th century. England was in one of its periodic struggles between two people seeking the crown. You had the Empress Matilda and King Stephen, who were both claiming the throne of England. So you had religious wars going on in a sense because the religious were split in who supported them. You also have, because Shrewsbury is located in the west of England on the Welsh border, you have an interesting aspect of sort of cultural conflict between the Welsh and the English in many of these stories. So Brother Cadfael's mysteries, the Ellis Peters series, are wonderful ones to read. I was delighted a number of years ago up at a Library Association conference to get a chance to work and talk with the author Caroline Rowe, who's the author of our next series. She's a Canadian. She's a medieval historian, and she brings to her mystery series a great deal of the scholarly work she's done in studying medieval Spain. So her Isaac of Girona series, which are set in the 1350s, so we've jumped a couple hundred years forward now, but the 1350s in Girona, Spain are wonderful stories. A great detective. He's a physician, so sort of like the Brother Cadfael stories, he knows his poisons, he knows his medicines, and a lot of the story, the mystery revolves around that. But these bring a really fascinating sense of place. Spain is a very different kind of place from any of the other mysteries we've talked about today, especially Spain in this particular time period. Isaac of Girona is a blind physician. He is Jewish, but he's also the physician for the Bishop of Girona, the Catholic Bishop of Girona. So again, you have a little bit of religious things going on here in the stories, which are fascinating. You have a big piece of this is the family life. Isaac has a family, children, and eventually grandchildren come into the story. There's a lot about food. So if you like Donna Leon's mysteries set in contemporary Venice, where she talks a lot about the food that's getting eaten there, I think you'll find some interesting recipes in a sense, and things to enjoy in these Isaac of Girona mysteries set in Spain in the 1350s. We're going to jump forward again about 100 years now to the 1470s, to Kate Sedley. She's one of my favorites, again, for a sense of humor in her books, sort of like Lindsay Davis in those Roman mysteries. Kate Sedley's hero is Roger the Chapman. Folks didn't have last names in this time period, but they were referred to by their occupation. So Roger's a Chapman. He goes from town to town and village to village with his pack on his back and a bunch of things to sell, sort of notions for the ladies, ribbons and needles and thread and things of that sort. And again, as an outsider, he comes into these towns and villages and can see what's going on, perhaps see the crimes in this case that are going on from a different perspective. He brings his own perspective. There's a little bit of a religious perspective in these as well. Roger was in the monastery for a while and decided the monastic life was not for him, so he took to the road. He does have a wife and children, but there's a little bit of conflict there too, even times. He and his mother-in-law don't get along real well, so he is often heading out on the road to sell his goods and solve mysteries. There's also a political aspect to these stories because Roger gets caught up, much to his dismay, in the political infighting that was going on in the British court. So he ends up working for one of the lords there, but it's not really the most comfortable place to be, and he'd prefer to be back out on the road selling. But he gets called on to solve mysteries for the good of England, I guess. So Roger the Chapman and Kate Sedley, a wonderful series. I don't know if I'd say this is my favorite, but one of my favorite series is set in the Elizabethan theater. I think that Edward Marston's Nicholas Bracewell series, or the Elizabethan theater mysteries as they're called, is a wonderful, wonderful look at life in a acting company around the time that Shakespeare was going full blast. Edward Marston's series is set in a theater company that Marston has made up. It's not one of the historical ones, but he has a great grasp of what life was like for a theater manager. Bracewell is the manager of the theater company, but also for the actors, how tenuous things were. Their theaters could be closed down at any time. They could be ordered out of town. It was not an easy life, but again, he imbues the theater aspect of this with a lot of humor. There's the prime actor in the theater company who thinks he's God's gift not only to the stage but to women, philandering everywhere he goes. He's got a woman in every town, or at least tries to anyway, and Nicholas has to keep him under control. And then there's the comic actor who thinks even the darkest tragedy needs to have a good jig in it, so he can get a little bit of his specialty in. So these are great from the interplay between the actors, but also, again, good, solid mystery stories and great writing, great sense of place. So if you're interested in the Elizabethan period, I think you'll find a lot to like in these, because she captures life in that time, or he rather captures life in that time as much as he provides a great mystery story. We're going to move to another completely exotic setting here, and one of my most interesting ones, I think, are these stories set in the Imperial court in Japan in the 1680s. Laura Jo Rowland's Samurai series features, again, an investigator who's a member of the royal court. Remember I was talking about Lord Marin back in the very first book, how he gets caught up in the political things as well as the mysteries because of his position in court. Well, Sano Ichiro in Laura Jo Rowland's series also finds himself there. He's an investigator for the Emperor of Japan, but at the same time he has this huge conflict with the other members of the imperial court who are all seeking to put their own agenda and to get their power for themselves. Ichiro doesn't seek power for himself, he seeks the truth, but that puts him of course in conflict with those people who might not want the truth to come out but just who want to grab and hold on to whatever they can. Again, a great sense of place. I think you'll find the smells, the sounds, the foodways again of Japan in the late 17th century come through. So for sort of a place that's often mysterious to us, we don't know a whole lot about it, a lot of us, and for me these were eye-opening stories, so a great place to start. We'll move on to the 18th century now, and this one is the first of our books, and probably I think the only one, looking at them, yeah, the only one that really involves a historical character. One of the things about historical mysteries that I think sometimes is fascinating is when they bring in an actual character from history to be part of the story, and in this case it's Sir John Fielding. The stories are by Bruce Alexander, who again sadly is no longer with us, but Sir John Fielding was the magistrate of the Bow Street Court in London, and established with his brother Henry Fielding, who was a novelist. Some of you may have heard of Henry Fielding. But he and his brother John established the first sort of prototypical police force in England, the Bow Street Runners. These stories are set in London. Great sense of 18th century London. The conflicts between the social classes are here. The conflicts between a little bit of religion, not a whole lot, but Sir John is also blind. And he was in real life. He was blinded in a military accident. He was a Navy, as a young man in the Navy, a musket exploded and blinded him. But it was said he could tell by the accent wherever in London or anywhere else in England the people who came before him in the court were. If you like courtroom dramas, you know, if you're interested in, if you're a John Grisham fan, if you're a Scott Turow fan, and want to go back in history a little bit and see what some of those earlier courtroom dramas might have been like, I would certainly think Bruce Alexander's Sir John Fielding series would be a great try for you. One of my favorite mystery characters is Dorothy Sayers' Sir Peter Wimsey. He's a great character that's set in that period between the World War I and World War II. But if you like Sir Peter Wimsey, I think you'll find a great deal to like in Kate Ross's mysteries, featuring Julian Kestrel. These are set in the Regency period in England, so in that early 19th century, 18 teens, 1820s. Kestrel is an aristocrat like Peter Wimsey. He is he's skilled at music. He's skilled with people. He's just an interesting fellow. He's sort of the guy you might want to be in the stories. I think he has a partner, his Dr. Watson, so to speak, and these are great stories for sense of place again. For England in that Regency period, Kate Ross, another one who died too young and only left us, I think, 5 or 6 stories in the series, is adept at capturing that sense of what life was like in that early 19th century in England. If you like Regency romances, I think you'll find a lot to like in these stories. Or if you like the thrillers, like Baroness Orczy's The Scarlet Pimpernel or something like that, the late 19th century sort of late 18th century swashbuckling thrillers, I think you'll find a lot to like in these. 2 more to finish up with here. And we're going to move to a little bit later in the 19th century. If you like exotic settings, Jason Goodwin's The Janissary Tree starts off his series set in Istanbul, Turkey. Wonderful sense of place, lots of food in here. His hero is constantly cooking, so I think that you find his Yashim is his name. He's a private investigator. He has ties to the court. In fact, he was a eunuch serving in the harem of the Sultan, but he's outside the court now. But he goes back to work for the Sultan at times. There's a lot of change going on in Turkey at this time, sort of a modernization in a sense. So I think some of those things that are going on today in the Middle East and in the Near East that concern concern us. You can sort of see some of their roots in here with some of the religious conflicts, some of the religious concerns. Great stories, a wonderfully appealing character, lots of interesting recipes if you like Turkish food, you want to find out about some interesting things you can do. Food-wise, you can find some interesting ideas in here, and a great mystery story. Again, good characters. Yashim partners up with the exiled Polish ambassador to the Turkish court. Of course, Poland has been divided up between Germany and Russia, so there is no Poland per se, but the Polish ambassador who was in Turkey at the time still lives on in hopes of a reunited Poland. So fascinating politics, fascinating story, interesting food. The last one I'm going to talk about was one I discovered a couple of years ago. These are Susanna Rhodes' Jade Del Cameron series. Jade is a great female private detective. She served in World War I as an ambulance driver. She knows how to drive. She knows how to shoot. She knows how to help people. Good stories. The first one in this series brings her to Africa, which is where most of the stories take place. She's there to try and track down the brother of her fiance, who was a pilot who died in World War I, and the last thing he asked before he died was that Jade try and track down his brother and help him. And so she goes to Africa. Great setting in Africa. Real sort of adventure thriller. I think if you like Douglas Preston and Lincoln Childs sort of thriller mysteries, you'll find a lot to enjoy in here. And again, a wonderfully appealing character, lead character, Jade Del Cameron, who's just a great person, a wonderful addition to the female private detective or amateur detective list. That's a few of the many historical mysteries you're going to find here at the Williamsburg Regional Library. We've covered 3,000 years in about 20 minutes. It's a quick trip. We've got a bunch of other lists for you that you might find enjoyable here. So come on down. There's lots more historical mysteries here to find at the Williamsburg Regional Library, and we hope you come by to sample some. Thanks a lot. See you next time.